I have to be the person that's always like dead in the face.
Like,
Where'd she go? Oh.
I have to sit back here. I'm sorry.
I'm ready to go back to bed.
Me too. That's
Thank
how I
you.
was yesterday. Come on, you come
Yeah.
on.
Independent studies, yay.
Focusing on those.
You and your essay.
I forget to do. And then it becomes like Wednesday like today, and I was like,
That's why I do it on the weekend. So I don't have to think about it.
Anyone do.
Ooh, Sydney, your hair is so pretty. Sarah, you're so talented.
I know,
with
she's
hair.
gonna go like that tomorrow. Please, Sarah, please.
My opportunity cost today was doing my hair, or sleeping 10 extra minutes. Guess which one won?
That extra minute.
That makes a difference.
It does. When it's cold out, I like to dry it, otherwise I'm like freezing all day.
Mhm.
But you know what? Just wear warmer clothes. Alright, we're missing Maddie and Lauren.
And Lauren.
Kids think they have to skip my class. Alright. I think this is where we got
Yeah.
talk about price. Okay. So to review a little bit, we discussed the difference between demand and quantity demanded. Who can tell me the difference there? Made eye contact. You want to take a guess?
Can you repeat the question?
The difference between demand and the quantity demanded. So I gave the example of Erin, and she could technically get 200 bowls of macaroni and cheese, but that's not necessarily what we're talking about for demand. Ringing any bells? Renee?
Okay, so like, I might have to switch, but like, is quantity demand the, like, almost what we could get, and what's in the demand is actually what's realistic of what's actually being demanded?
Okay, so demand is people's desire to buy things. So it's not only that they want it, but they are willing to get it and they're willing to pay for it. So in a sense, you're on the right lines. And then the quantity demanded is the quantity demanded at a particular price. So if we're looking at, I think the example was point shoes. If they're $10, the quantity demanded is a lot greater than if they're $200 a pair, right? So looking at the price at a specific, or at the quantity demanded at a specific price, right, various prices. Alright, so, back up a minute. So we discussed that economists are looking at the bigger range, they're looking at the quantities that a person will demand while holding all other possible influencing factors constant. And they can put everything that can possibly affect quantity demanded into two groups. And the first group is the price, and then the second group is everything else. So the reason that they can divide this is we can look at the influence, the quantity demanded in just two groups, because economists want to concentrate on just the price. So we're just looking at the price and the quantity demanded in a demand curve. And then also when we draw a demand, on a graph, prices have a very different effect than do other variables. So with a price change, we're moving along the demand curve, and then other variables combine to determine exactly where the demand curve is located and what its shape is. So there we get density as mass over volume. Just kidding. Sorry, I'm trying to wake up. Alright, so we have our curve, we have our x-axis, our y-axis. Okay, so y. On the bottom, we're going to have the quantity on the side, we have price. Okay, so price changed, move along the demand curve, and then other variables kind of tell you where the curve is at. So, demand curve, if the quantity, or if the price goes up, you're not getting as many. If the price goes down, you're demanding more, right? That's the essence of the demand curve. So, the price is the everyday life, in everyday life is the number of dollars that must be given up in exchange for an object. So that's the money price, or another way of looking at it is the opportunity cost. So we're giving up one highly valued thing for another. So if you buy ice cream instead of cake, your opportunity cost is the foregone cake. You didn't get that cake, you got the ice cream instead. And then we calculated the opportunity cost, so if ice cream is $1 per scoop, and cake is, what did I say, 50 cents? Yeah, 50 cents per slice. The opportunity cost of one scoop is that you can't have your 50-cent slice of cake. Right? So the ratio of one price to the other, to get one scoop, you give up your cake, your 50 cents. Relative price is the ratio of one price to another, and it's an opportunity cost. It's usually expressed in basket price. So instead of just comparing an individual good, it's how much does a basket of that good cost. And then to find the relative price, you calculate the price index. So to get the price index, you divide the money price of a good by the money price of a basket of goods. And then the price is expressed in relative price terms. These are just kind of in the text as though this is kind of what you need to know, but we're not really calculating it right now. So just write that down in your notes for reference later on. Okay. Alright, so then we just went over the price, and now we're going to look at everything else. So everything else includes taste and preferences, and we're going to go through each of these items, but just kind of, you have like a neat little outline going in your notes. Everything else, da 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 da. So we have taste and preference, other prices, so prices of other goods, income, expected future prices, and population. So with taste and preferences, that's looking at, even if the price of gas was only 50 cents a gallon and I had extra money to spend, I would not buy more mac and cheese. So yesterday we used the example of Aaron's love of mac and cheese. I don't like mac and cheese, can't eat dairy. I'm not gonna buy mac and cheese at any price, no matter how much I have. So my preference is, I don't like that item. Aaron's, she loves it. So we have different tastes and preferences. So even though I wouldn't buy mac and cheese at any price level, Aaron, on the other hand, would probably buy more mac and cheese if the price was lower. So if all of a sudden it was 10 cents a bowl, she's gonna get 500 bowls, because she can, she loves it that much. Alright? Yeah? Maybe not, okay. So Aaron would have a higher quantity demanded than I would, because at any price you can see that Aaron has a higher demand than I do. So even if it's $2 a bowl, she still has a higher demand than I do, because I don't want it at all. My demand is 0. Is that making a little bit of sense? Okay. So taste and preferences affect the demand curve. Other prices, so the price of other goods also affects the demand for a product. The example, if the price of a movie ticket went up, which I mean they're already kind of expensive, but if, let's say you had to pay $15 to see a new movie, you have $10, you're not going to demand that movie ticket, instead you're going to use that $10 towards something else. So if the price of the movie ticket went up, people are not as likely to go see a movie in the theater. Instead, they may save that money, they may spend the money they saved by not going to see a movie, but another form of entertainment, so if they maybe want to go out dancing. Thus, a change in the price of a movie ticket affected the quantity demanded of dance tickets, because you can't afford movies, so now you're doing the dance, right? Follow along. Paige, you look tired.
I'm just having a hard time taking notes.
Okay. Well, I did upload the one from yesterday, and then if I get a chance, I'll do this one again today. I'm just trying to do daily. But if you all could like just choose either Edmodo or Teachery, so I don't have to do both. That would be helpful. Karen?
I voted Moto.
Okay.
I was gonna vote t-shirts.
Okay, both it is. Where were we? Okay, so other prices affecting the quantity demanded. So the price of dancing didn't change, but the quantity demanded changed because another good's price changed. So that's how other prices can affect your demand curve. Everything else continued. Income is another factor that can influence the curve. As you get richer, you increase your quantity demanded of certain goods that you've always liked and can now afford to buy more of it. And then at the same time, you decrease your demand for those products you were getting only because you couldn't afford something else. So if you're eating ramen noodles every day because they're like less than $1 and you can afford that, but you've eaten them every day for the past like 3 months, you're pretty much over the ramen noodle, and all of a sudden you get like a $100 paycheck. Your income has just increased, and now you can afford to go buy a Subway sandwich or, I don't know, a sugary cereal that's really tasty, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, maybe. It's a favorite. So you can afford to buy more of a good that you already like, or you can buy a good that you like more than the one you've been buying. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So let's give an example. So what is a good that you would buy more of if your income increased?
Point shoes.
Point shoes, okay. And then what is a good that you're buying now that you're not in love with, and if you had more money, you'd buy another something?
Okay, I love coffee,
Okay.
and I usually drink Folgers because it's like $10 for like a big canister, but if I had more money, I would go to a coffee shop and get their ground beans for that, but it's a lot more expensive.
Right, so in that case, we would call your Folgers coffee an inferior good. So it's a good for which the demand decreases as your income increases. So now that you have more money coming in, you're getting the good stuff at Starbucks, you don't have to worry about Folgers anymore. So your normal good would be your Starbucks coffee, where it's a good for which demand increases as your income increases. So every once in a while, Marnie might stop in, she's like, oh, I have an extra $1, I'm gonna go get a Starbucks. So like she still has that good, but now that her income is increased, she can just go every day. So I was talking to my little sister, and she's addicted to Starbucks. And I told her, you know, we just got this new Keurig at work, and I've been drinking coffee or caffeinated beverage every day, I'm pretty sure I'm addicted. She's like, no, you're not addicted until you choose coffee over putting gas in your car, or coffee over.
Oh my
I was like,
gosh.
good point, I should probably cut back. So,
Jeez.
a related story, my little sister. Another example of inferior versus normal good would be cars. So a lot of you are just getting your licenses, you're probably not getting brand new cars, you're probably getting a clunker, because that's what you can afford or what your parents can afford for you. But if you had more income and you could afford a nice like Ferrari or something, like even just a new car versus a used one, you would probably get that, right? Yeah. Alright, so income is affecting the demand curve as well. And then we also have expected future prices. So if you expect the price of a good to fall in the future, you may want to wait to purchase that good. So let's see an example. What?
Gas prices.
Right, so with gas prices, you know, you're looking at your gas gauge and you're at half, you look at the price, it's $3.50 a gallon. What are the chances it's gonna be $3.30 by the time I need more gas? Do I wait or do I buy now? So if you have good reason to think that it's gonna go down, you may just wait and then purchase it in the future. But then if you think it's gonna go up, you may get it before the price goes up, so that way you're saving money. So again, with gas prices, you can sometimes, you'll see like a really long line of cars in the gas station, you're like, uh-oh, gas prices are going up, better stop, right? So expected future prices also affect your demand of an item or a service. Population, demand in New York is higher because there's more people than demand is in Smallsville, where the population is smaller, right? So there's more people in New York, so the demand for items is higher versus our demand here in Indiana. We have fewer people, demand for a certain item may be smaller. So also looking at the population. all this sinking in and making sense? Okay. So the law of demand says that other things remaining the same, the higher the price of a good, the smaller the quantity demanded. And we looked at that with our little graph. That looked like a Y. So when we're looking at economic model, we're only focusing on one or two variables. The higher the price, the smaller quantity demanded. So if we're at this point here, the price, let's say, is like 500 up here, 3, 2 here, and then the quantity demanded, let's say like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So when something costs $500, the demand for it's only about 15, versus when something is only about $200, more people demand that good. 40 people, right? The quantity demand is 40. So other things remaining the same, the higher the price of good, the smaller the quantity demanded. Then we have this thing called the substitution effect, and that's when the price of one good rises, other things remaining the same, its relative price or its opportunity cost rises as well. So you may decide to substitute that item for another. So substitute is a good that can be used in its place. So as the opportunity cost of a good rises, people buy less of that good and more of its substitutes. So if you're a Pepsi lover, Pepsi all of a sudden costs $8 a can. You can't afford that. Coke's similar. You're gonna go with the Coke, it's only $2 a can. So that would be a substitute. Another thing, substituting a bus ride for a train ride. Along the same lines, just a little different, right? So if the price of riding on a bus was higher, you'd ride on the train, vice versa. A complement is a good that's used in conjunction with another good. So anytime I have a peanut butter on my sandwich, jelly's going on there too, right? Peanut butter and jelly just go together. Hamburgers and french fries go together. What are some other complement items that if you have one, you pretty much always have the other?
Pancake and syrup.
There you go, pancake and syrup, those are complements.
Macaroni and cheese.
Macaroni and cheese, yep. What else? Marie, you look like you're thinking.
No, I was trying to think of
Okay, Marie?
It just actually kind of makes me think about how like the stores like to kind of manipulate the mind, because like if you think about it, like when it gets around a season, like the holidays, a lot of people like to make like green bean casserole, so they put like the green beans next to like the fried onions like right next to
Yeah.
each other.
Because they go together, and now instead of just selling the one good, they've sold 3 or 4. Yeah. Aaron?
Spaghetti and meatballs.
Yep. Did you get that from the bud?
No,
Oh,
I made that up myself. Spaghetti is one of my favorites.
Okay, yeah, that works. So, complements, when you're buying one good, you're usually buying the other one. And then the income effect is when faced with a higher price and an unchanged income, people cannot afford to buy all of the things they previously bought, so the quantities of at least some of the goods and services must be decreased. So normally, the good that has increased in price is the thing that is bought in smaller quantity. So if you think of everyday items that you're getting, point shoes, if the price went up, you may have to get a smaller quantity of point shoes, and you might increase like your flat shoes. You can get away with some of your classes on flat, right?
No.
No?
That'd be nice.
Doesn't work that way? Okay.
No.
Let's think, so give me another example then of an income effect. When you're faced with a higher price and your income is the same, you can no longer get one good, so the quantity would decrease. Over?
Like, when you're going out to eat, like the food is getting more expensive, so then you have to eat at home more.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, so as as the price of eating out gets higher, you can no longer afford to eat out 2 or 3 times a week, you have to eat at home now. So you either have to have like that bowl of cereal because nobody in your house cooks, or maybe your parents cook and you have like nice, delicious meals waiting for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice. Aaron?
just for fun.
Oh,
Like,
you
yeah.
get nice home cooked meals. Yeah, it's been a while. Holly.
Would that be like if you have a car and your car is running on the gas, you would probably not drive as much because gas prices are getting more expensive and you
Yeah.
need gas.
Yep, you might ride your bike more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then that could be a substitution effect then because you can't afford to drive your car everywhere, you have to ride your bike. Making sense? Alright, economics is so fun. Alright, so I went and copied the economics for dummy graph because I liked it better than the ones in your textbooks. That's comparing outdated technology. So this is demand curve. Again, you have the quantity, you have the price, and then you have your demand curve and then different points on the curve. So the demand curve slopes downward because when prices fall, people buy more. So as this is falling, you can see the curve, quantity is demanded, more is demanded. So prices have an inverse relationship with the quantity demanded. So as the price increases, as the price goes up, the demand decreases. And again, that's when all other things that could affect the quantity demanded are held constant. Likewise, as the price decreases, the quantity demanded increases. So what kind of curve would this be, positive or negative? Would it have an inverse relationship? Correct. So if the price increases or decreases, you're moving along the curve. So the curve is looking at the price, and then when non-price factors such as those taste, preference, income, etc., those determine where the curve is and how it's shaped. So depending on if it's here and if it's curved or if it's more of a straight line, and then where at it's located within the graph. Still with me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a shift in the demand curve, if the price of a good remains the same, but some other influence on buyers' plans changes, then there's a change in the demand as a shift on the demand curve. So more of a product, more is bought at each price level, but it's where they find. So looking at this, so an increase in demand shifts the curve to the right. So we have our original curve here, and then some things affected it where it's shifted now. So my example is if a study came out that said you will be a better ballerina, tennis player, musician, insert hobby here. If you eat an apple every day, you're going to get better at that activity. The demand for apples then may increase, not because of like a price or quantity of it by itself, but because of another factor. So instead of staying on this curve, we've then shifted the curve out. Did you follow that? Okay. So now, question? Okay. So now, so with the original curve, people were willing to buy 5 of whatever we're comparing at the price of $2. But now at that same price, we're willing to buy 15. So before we were saying like 5 apples for $2 is not a bad deal. Now that this study's come out, like I want apples, I want to be better at my profession, we're now willing to buy 15 apples at $2 a price, $2 each. Okay, makes sense? Did I lose you? Okay. Preferences, this is showing how different preferences would be a different shape of the curve. So different reactions lead to different slopes. The person who buys a lot when the price decreases has a flat demand curve, and the person who barely changes their demand has a steep demand curve. So if we're at point A, you're getting you're willing to buy 6 things at $1. When the price increases to $2, you're still buying 5. So your demand, even though the price has gone up, is still pretty high, right? So that's a very steep demand curve. Whereas if when the price is $1, you're buying 15, and then all of a sudden the price goes up to $2, you're only willing to buy 5. So that's kind of more of a flat curve. That makes sense. So this was comparing preferences between me and my sister. The example in the book was pecans, but you can compare anything really, okay? So which one would be Erin's macaroni and cheese curve? Zero?
First one?
Yeah. Because it doesn't matter how much she's paying, she's still gonna eat her mac and cheese. Whereas me, I was like, I don't really have to eat it. So originally, like this demand curve, you were eating or consuming more. You're consuming 15 when it was at $1, whereas here when it was $1, you're only consuming 6. But then as the price went up, this person was still willing to pay more for that item, whereas here the demand dropped drastically, right? Okay. So now we can start talking about supply. So we just covered demand, quantity on the bottom of whatever variable, price on the y-axis, demand slope is negative. Okay, so with supply, a firm supplies a good or service, and then the firm has 1, 2, and 3. So the firm has the resources and technology to produce it. The firm can profit from producing the item, and then the firm has made a definite plan to produce it and sell it. So this is similar to the demand, where it's a good that you want and you're willing to pay for it. This is a product they're willing to supply because they've made a definite plan to produce it and sell it. And then they can also profit from it. And then resources and technology are the constraints that limit what is possible. So again, scarcity, limited resources. If we don't have the technology to kind of produce more, those are limitations on what we can supply. Okay. The law of supply says other things remaining the same, the higher the price of a good, the greater is the quantity supplied. So, I should have labeled that as demand. And then we'll and then this would be supplied. You still have price over here on the y. Sorry, my x's and y's look a lot alike. And then quantity on the x. So this is saying other things remaining the same. The higher the price of a good, the greater the quantity supplied. So the price of this good at this point, let's say again $5, 500, whatever. The quantity demanded is greater than over here when the price is lower. The quantity, sorry, I said demanded, the quantity supplied is lower, the lower the price. So the higher the price of the good, the greater is the quantity supplied. And then with supply, we have an increasing marginal cost. So as the quantity produced increases, the marginal cost of producing the good also increases. So that would be, I think we covered this last week or week before, where you can produce 10 items with only like 2 helpers, but then if you want to increase the quantity produced to 15, you're going to have to hire another worker, so you need more resources. So the cost of adding that additional worker would increase the price of the marginal cost. So when the price of a good increases, producers are willing to incur the higher marginal cost and then increase production. Okay. And then supply refers to the entire relationship between the quantity supplied and the price of a good. And it's illustrated by the supply curve and the supply schedule. So right now we're looking at these as individual graphs. Eventually we're going to go ahead and throw supply here and look at the relationship between the two. So the quantity supplied is the amount that producers plan to sell during a given time period, such as a day, month, or year, at a particular price. So looking to see what producers are planning to sell during a given time period at a particular price. And as there is a difference between demand and quantity,